is a senior lecturer of psychology at the International Open University and a diplomate in logotherapy. She's also a life coach, authored 2 books, and homeschooling mom. She holds a master's in psychology and many certificates in personal development. Her areas of interest are religion, neuroscience, high performance, and positive psychology, working with women and teenage girls to overcome depression and heal themselves through a holistic approach. In her experience, she delivers workshops, relationships, personal development, and Islamically interested life coaching. She also holds a diploma in Quran and Hadith. She loves to combine concepts of psychology with the divine principles of Islam. Before I will give you the stage to you, Bella, I would like to state that we are providing simultaneous translation services. I will write it on the chat, a link, so that if you have any trouble, you can use that simultaneous translation. And by the end of the session, please complete the session surveys. Thank you. Bella, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Memdu, and hello, everyone. This is Bela Khan, as Memdu has already introduced. I'm going to be sharing with you augmenting logotherapy with the Quranic perspective, a novel approach to psychological well-being. Quran being the book of Muslims, the final revelation, as Muslims believe. I have done this work under the kind guidance of Dr. Cynthia Wimberly. I think she has been an exceptionally wonderful supervisor. She was open to my ideas, all my craziness, and my eccentricities. She has been putting up a lot with me. So thank you very much, Dr. Wimberly. And I'm here mostly because of her confidence in me and the work that I was doing. So I will primarily divide my apologies with this. Primarily divide my presentation into 2 halves. The first half is going to be drawing some parallels between Islam and logotherapy. And the second half is going to be discussing how we transformed all of these concepts into a therapeutic protocol and help the women with depression and anxiety. And I'll come to that part. But first up, we are going to be discussing this in a bit. So we start with meaning in life. That is what logotherapy is all about. And Frankl emphasized incredibly on the fact that man should be searching for the meaning in life, right? So one of Frankl's quotes from Man's Search for Meaning, that is my personal favorite. He says that life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. And the greatest task for any person is to find meaning in his or her life, right? So we know that the day and age that Frankl was Frankl was producing his work, that day and age was dominated by Freud. And Freud and his followers were very dominant. And Adler being the follower of Freud and then detaching from Freud, starting his own school of thought. Frankl, in the beginning, being a very staunch follower of Freud, soon realized that Freud is on a different quest. And from there, Frankl began his own quest for meaning. Moving right along, so there is this concept of meaning in the ultimate meaning, right? So what Frankl proposes, or what logotherapy proposes, is that life has meaning under all circumstances, even the most miserable ones. And there is a deeper overarching meaning of our lives. So that is ultimate meaning, which I see is that all of the humanity is directed towards working for the same cause, right? That is the ultimate meaning. And then there is meaning of the moment, right? Because there is meaning moment to moment. Meaning can also be found in every single situation, right? And since there are humans, there are individuals with their own skill sets, with their own personalities, that ultimate meaning, it also boils down to something that we can call individual meaning, right? So there's ultimate meaning, there's meaning in the moment, and then there is an individual meaning. Yani how a person is going to get to that ultimate meaning is through his personalized version of individual meaning. When it comes to meaning in Islam, meaning in life, Islam is very clear, right? And Islam says pretty much what logotherapy says, just Islam getting a little ahead, a little of goes a little further of what logotherapy says, right? So for logotherapy, the ultimate meaning is something that you need to find. The individual meaning is something that you need to find. Islam defines what that ultimate meaning is, and that is you are the best of nation produced as an example for mankind, or you are the best of the nation produced for mankind. Or I am tempted to read the Arabic part, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, that you are the best of the people, you have been brought out for other people, right? What it essentially means is that the ultimate purpose of humanity is to be that individual that is making some difference in the lives of other individuals. And I'm going to relate it to the next ayah, and I'll complete my sentence, that the ultimate purpose of human is to be of service to another human by being the slave of God, by being that man of God that a person should be, right? So in another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, and I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship. Jinn being the what do you call jinn in English? Okay, that slipped my mind. And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. Worship, the word in Arabic, is a very vast word that includes all, it does not only include the ritual, but also includes all the ways of life that one can possibly think of, right? So our ultimate purpose, let's tie both these ayat together, let's tie both these verses together. So our ultimate purpose is to be of service to humanity by being that slave, by being that slave of God. Another way to say that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran is that you are on the earth, you are the successive authority, you are the Khalifa, you are the representative of God on earth, right? So again, these three ayat in one way or the other is telling us that first up, we are the slaves of God, or we are the successive authority, or we are the representative of God. And what we are meant to do here in this world is to serve other people. And if you look at it, if you describe success in any terms, in any words, if you look at successful people, I mean, not even Muslims, look at any successful. If you think that, Mark Zuckerberg is successful, then see that he has created something of benefit to humanity. If you look at Steve Jobs and say that, the Apple, the MacBook that we are using, that is of service to humanity. So in any term you define success, or if there is any person you consider to be successful, you will see that there is one common trait in those people, is that they have produced something of value, something of meaning to humanity or for humanity. Moving right along, meaning and suffering, that is another concept presented by Frankl in his logotherapy. So this has been subdivided into different sections, right? So first up, we have defined power of human spirit. So the human capacity to take a stand against our fate, right? Fate, Frankl describes as something that you cannot change. but you have the capacity to take a stand, right? The conscious resistance against biological, psychological, or sociological limitations. Franklian psychology helps us become aware and develop the defined power of his spirit to overcome our existential frustration, and anything that reduces our will to defy our unhappy fate will only strengthen the effect of such a fate, right? And again, there is a very lovely quote by Frankl that he writes in the book The Doctrine and the Soul. By the way, that was the most difficult book of Frankl that I found. Whenever one is confronted with an inescapable, unavoidable situation, whenever one has to face a fate that cannot be changed, so for example, an incurable disease, just then is one given a last chance to actualize the highest value, to fulfill the deepest meaning, the true meaning of suffering. So every suffering brings some form of good for you. One of the things that I keep saying is that suffering teaches you, suffering and calamity and all the difficult circumstances in life, they teach you what ease and comfort can never teach you, right? So you think about all the resilience that you have developed, think about all the ways that you have become a stronger, different person. It is all because of the suffering that you have, or the challenges that you have faced in life. And similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ, that we are surely going to test you with something of fear, right? So the test, the suffering is inevitable. It is going to come, whether it's in the form of fear or in the form of hunger. So, I mean, think about Frankl. So concentration camp, it is associated with fear. Think about the inhumane treatment in concentration camp. In his books, we learned that sometimes they'll just get a piece of bread to eat. So they were tested with hunger, loss of wealth and lives. So all of the family that Frankl had, we know that they passed away in those concentration camps. All of that, right? So what we are understanding here is that tests, hardship, suffering is inevitable. It is going to come. That is what Quran tells us as well, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبَشِّرَ الصَّابِرِينَ, and then give glad tidings, good news to the patient ones, right? And one of the things that we see throughout Frankl's journey is his patience, and the fact that he escaped, or he eventually was released from the concentration camp, was the result of his immense, incredible patience, right? And another verse of Quran, just to establish the fact that suffering is inevitable, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the very purpose of creating the life and death is to test you, right? الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. That he who created death and life just to test you, which one of you is the best indeed. So I usually give the example that, you never go from grade 2 to grade 3 or grade 3 to 4 without giving an exam. You have to appear in an exam, and then your level, your classes, your grades, you go from one grade to another. Similarly, in life, it is not possible to go from one grade to another without taking these tests. In another place in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then did you think that we created you uselessly, and that to us you would not return? That is, you think the purpose of your creation is useless, it is purposeless? It is not, right? So here we have established something that Frankl said, meaning in suffering, and we have established that suffering is inevitable, and it is that very meaning that you find in that very suffering you find the meaning. And I was very tempted, I was very fearful of the time limitations, but I was very tempted to add this story of Yusuf alayhi salam. And we know that he was being put into the prison where he suffered so much, but he continued to live the meaning that he was living for, even in the prison. Moving right along, there is this tragic right? I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I'm going to get into the details of what Frankl says as tragic optimism, right? So in response to tragic triad, Frankl's talk about tragic optimism, which is the pain is an opportunity to turn suffering into human achievement and accomplishment. Had there been no pain, there would have been no gain, right? A very cliched saying that no pain, no gain. Then guilt, driving from guilt, the opportunity to change oneself for the better. So the necessary result of a healthy guilt that the person will change his ways, right? And finally, death, deriving from life's transitoriness and incentive to take responsible action. Yeah, I have to die, so I need to get my things done. Need to get my affairs straight, right? So all of these are the opportunity of change, right? So that's tragic optimism for you. And when we talk about Islam, we have established the fact that Islam tells about the fact that suffering is inevitable. But again, Islam gives a lot of optimism, a lot of hope when Islam says, with every hardship there is ease, right? And this is really interesting. Like the Arabic sequence, it says ma'al usri, with hardship. A lot of people think that after hardship comes ease. No, Quran is very clear on that. With every hardship there is ease. So if you look into your circumstances, whatever you're going through, you might have very challenging circumstances in terms of finance, in terms of relationship, in terms of old age, in terms of sickness of your loved ones, all of that. But at the same time, God, whatever God you believe in, God would have created some level of ease for you, right? So if you're suffering, if you're sick, perhaps you have the money to pay to the hospital. Or if you are financially challenged, then perhaps you're young enough to earn, young enough to do multiple jobs, right? So there is, with every hardship, there is ease, and that's optimism that Islam offers, right? Then elsewhere in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah intends for you ease, right? So He wants to create ease for you. Attitudinal change, I am going to be showing this good, nice diagram that is going to be making the concept easy for us. So attitudinal change is essentially when you cannot change the situation, you change your attitude towards the situation. So Frankel essentially could not run away from the concentration camp, could not, break the gates and go out of that. But what he changed was his attitude. What can I do even in this confinement? What can I do in this limited area? And he did what he was supposed to do. He was still being a doctor. He was still being a therapist. He was still being whoever he could possibly be, right? So attitudinal change, if you look at this diagram, it says that event. First step, ask yourself, can you change the situation? So if you can, here we go, right? Yes, that leads to freedom, right? So freedom of what? So you had the freedom. Did you change the situation? The situation was changeable. Did you change it? If you did, khalas, it leads to meaningful fulfillment, right? Meaning fulfillment. But if you did not change it, it leads to guilt, right? And then if the event was not changeable, if you could not do anything about this, so you're like cancer on the last stage, you cannot do anything about it. That is essentially fate. That's what Frankel calls fate. So what sort of attitude do you have in the face of that fate, right? So if you had the positive attitude towards that fate, it is meaning fulfillment. But if it is not, then it leads to despair, it leads to resentment, and it just makes the things worse. Just let me clear. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, my screen is clear. So this is essentially attitudinal change for you. Please, what did I do here? Okay, right? Another concept which is similar, which is in line with attitudinal change, is free will, right? Human beings are not the product of their circumstances. They are not robots that God is playing with. Humans have freedom of will, right? We always have the freedom of will to find meaning. We have the freedom to make choices, meaningful decisions are guided by our value and conscience. So we can choose our attitude, and this applies moment to moment, but it is especially meaningful in the times of unavoidable suffering. right? So those of us who are deterministic, and we know that Freud, he was essentially deterministic, thinking human beings to be a product of fate, who cannot do anything, who cannot make decisions or anything. Frankl was of the opinion that that is not the case, right? Human beings pretty much have free will, and based on that free will, they can make decisions and they can also choose. So again, a quote from Frankl, he says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, that cannot be taken away from a man. Right? So Islam again talks a lot about attitudinal change. So in Quran, we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, that we have shown him two ways, right? We have given them path, we have given them choice, we have given them to choose what is good for them. Also, attitudinal change, we have a related concept in Islam where there are prophetic sayings, right? We call it hadith, right? Prophetic saying. In one of those prophetic saying, we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I am as my servant thinks I am, right? So a lot that attitudinal change has to do with is the fact that God is going to have, or God is doing to us what we expect him to do, right? So our thought process, our belief system plays a very significant role in our attitudinal change. So with free will comes responsibility, right? And this is the reason that we Muslims, we have this understanding that human beings will be held accountable on the day of judgment. Why? Because they were given the free will, right? And the free will necessitates responsibility. We have meaningful human experiences when we accept that we are responsible for making the choices that are right for us in every situation. In a different sense, we are response-able. We choose how we respond to our circumstances, right? So Frankl describes it beautifully. So in Quran, we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, and you will surely be questioned about what you used to do, right? So again, questioning, accountability is a very strong concept in Islam, given that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us free will, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the choices. In another ayah, in another verse of Quran, we learn that surely the hearing, the sight, and the heart, all of these shall be questioned, right? So our hearts, our sight, so what did we see? What did we hear? All of those, all the faculties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, they will be questioned, because human beings were essentially given free will. I'll just be a little faster than I would want to be. So in logotherapy, values have been given a lot of importance. I'll skip this slide, right? So Frankl says, man, however, is able to live and even to die for the sake of his ideals and values. So values are something that is essentially coming from inside, that is guiding the direction of your life, that is guiding your behavior. And Frankl says that creative values, it is an expression of your creativity. You're making a chocolate cake. Experiential values, so whatever your experiences are, and then attitudinal values. And if you read the religious texts of Muslims, Quran and Hadith, again, it's full of values. There are multiple verses, multiple prophetic saying that speak about truth, about integrity, about intentionality, giving, being more charitable, loving more, forgiving more, gratitude, and all of that. And of course, time would not permit me to get into the details of all of this, but this and many more that, of course, I could not cover in one presentation is what we learn in again, our religious scriptures. Values are very closely tied in with goals and actions, because again, if there are only values, only goals, and no actions, it's useless, right? So Frankl believes that a meaningful goal is one that goes beyond personal gratification and contributes to a larger purpose. So goal is not just, I need to earn this much money, or I need to get this much incentive or materialistic desire. It has to be something bigger than yourself, right? It involves transcending the self and considering how our actions can positively impact others and the world around us. I'll have to skip some points. My apologies, right? So Again, another quote of Frankl, he says, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, right? So Frankl talks about self-reflection, self-awareness. I was listening to another good presentation a while ago, and the speaker had jotted down like a lot of good points about self-awareness. All right, then when it comes to Islam, there is a lot of emphasis on taking action. So I've listed down these verses. So the paradise and the success in the next world is essentially associated with taking actions. So if you are very good speakers and it's all talk and no actions, there is definitely going to be no reward, right? So success in this world and success in the next world all have been tied to or associated with taking actions, right? So inshallah, I'll share the presentation. Anyone who's interested can go through these ayat, these verses. One of my favorite concept, most favorite, is the self-transcendence, going beyond yourself. And this, I would have loved to explain this, but I'll skip. I think I'm going to run out of time if I do accept. So self-transcendence, I wrote this down, and I'll give this credit to Dr. Wimberle, that when she was explaining, she gave the example of a mother. And she said that, the ideal of putting your children and family first, more than your comfort, more than your, beyond yourself. It's, where can we learn self-transcendence better than, a mother in the house? So self-transcendence also include adding to the world our gifts, putting others before ourselves. And again, in Islam, there are a lot of examples of so many people putting others before themselves, right? And a very small story is that when Prophet Muhammad, in our tradition, we believe that when Prophet Muhammad, he made a migration from Makkah to Medina, the people of Medina, so Makkah and Medina being the names of the city, now they are in Saudi Arabia. The people of Medina at that point of time, they were known as helpers, they were known as Ansar, and they welcomed those immigrants and they shared everything, their properties, their food, their clothes, their business, everything with those Muslims. Some even going, way ahead and even sharing quite a lot of things. If I get into the details, it's going to be very emotional. And then we learn in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and they give food in spite of love for it to the needy, the orphan, the captive. Yani they have the love for the food, but still they give it to the more needy people. There are some other verses. Then Frankl talks quite a lot about prayer as a coping strategy. We know that Frankl himself was a very religious man, although he presented logotherapy almost as a secular therapy, being usable for all the religions of the world, which I think we owe him a lot of gratitude for that. So I'll just read the headings here: connecting with something greater, transcending personal circumstances, cultivating self-transcendence, finding meaning and purpose. All of that are the key element of Frankl's approach to prayer as a coping strategy. Again, from an Islamic perspective, a lot of emphasis has been given to prayer. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when you call upon me, I respond to your call and I'm near to you, right? So again, these ayat are written here. All right, my people, second half of my presentation, based on all these information that I've shared with you, a protocol was designed to help primarily Muslim people, but I have a very huge confidence, incredible confidence in the fact that if anybody uses this protocol for treating psychopathology, they will see significant improvement. So a study designed logotherapy augmented by Quran to alleviate depression and anxiety symptoms in women. This was a pre-post test design study. So this is a quick, so first up, this the first half of my presentation that you have seen, it was an adaptation of logotherapeutic intervention with Islamic teaching. So we took confirmation of the logotherapy part from Dr. Wimberle herself, and then the religious part from a few scholars. Based on that, we designed a pre-test, post-test study in which a pilot study was done with 5 participants. So it worked like this, right? So we did pre-testing. Intervention was based on 10 session, and then we did post-test. Similarly, for main study, I was very keen on having a lot of participants, but Dr. Wimberly suggested 15, which was a good number. I realized when I was into it, I was like, okay, even 15 is a good number. Then again, we did pre-test, intervention, post-test. Moving right along, we sample. This is my inclusion and exclusion criteria for the participants. This was the sampling techniques. I need to rush because I'm lagging behind time. So I used 4 questionnaires. Including the demographics is going to be 5. So the one to assess the depression, one to assess anxiety, one to assess meaning in life, and of course the demographics. So participants were screened based on the questionnaires. We started with about 23 participants, but dropout rates, and I was left with 15 only participants showing high symptoms of depression and anxiety were included in the study. A 10-week logotherapeutic intervention was conducted on 15 participants. Post-test was done after the intervention. So you see these are the ethical consideration. They had voluntary participation, informed consent, and so on. So this was the intervention protocol that you just saw. These are the topics, and these are the explanation of those topics: so meaning in life, meaning in suffering, values, attitudinal change, meaning of the moment, goals and action, almost everything that I just covered, right? So this is the concise, precise version of that. Statistical analysis, some descriptive statistics, correlation, peer t-test. I'm not getting into the numbers. I think that is going to be very overwhelming. Just sharing the results quickly. There was significant decrease in both depression and anxiety from pre-test to post-test measure after the intervention, after 10 weeks. There was significant increase in the understanding of meaning of life from the pre-test to post-test measure after intervention. So these, of course, results were in line with quite a lot of studies that were done in the past. Some of the limitations of my study was that the participants were only women. It was an online study. It was only conducted on the educated class. So yeah, these limitations can be addressed in the future. Implications include that this protocol can be used on men, students, Western Muslims. So I was primarily working with the Eastern side of the world. We can also use it on working professionals. And I have just driven my car on the 5th gear so as to leave some space for question, answer, or feedback session. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope it was beneficial. I'm open for any question, any comment, any feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bela. And if you have any questions, you can please raise hands, and you can speak directly to Bela.
Can I speak directly, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so thank you for that excellent presentation. I have a question. Do you find while working with these individuals that some are more responsive to arguments of meaning in life versus others? It's been shown that some people have more receptive to concept of like sanctity or things like that. Do you find that there's like differences?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you're working with a group, you will always find that some individuals are very enthusiastic. They're taking part. They are giving you more answers than you would want to have. And there are always some of them who are very passive, right? And you're even, sometimes it puts you in confusion that, if I'm explaining what I'm explaining properly enough for them to understand. But when you're working with group, you will see there are all sorts of people. Some are responsive, some are not. So it's all good. At the end of the day, I think it's the questionnaire that determines the amount of change that has been brought in. Unfortunately, the quantitative analysis, that's how it works. I hope that answers the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
have a question. Thank you, Bela. Did you measure religiosity level of participants before logo education and after logo education? Because more religious participants can benefit more. Also, this program can enhance religiosity level of participants. Just I wonder, did you measure religiosity level of participants?
Okay, this is an excellent suggestion. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Hawagul? Is that how I pronounce your name? Okay, this is an excellent suggestion. No, I did not measure the religiosity at the beginning. I think in my future studies, I can incorporate that. I think that's a very good suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you for this research. I really enjoy with your presentation.
Thank you. That's so nice of you.
Can I say something real quick? I think Bela did a really good job of defining when she was inviting women to participate. And so some of that was a self-selection. They knew it was going to involve meaning, and then also the religious side of it. So although she didn't address that, Bela, correct me if I'm wrong, they knew going into that was going to be a part of the study, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I was very clear since the get-go. The consent form, everything said it very clearly that the religious part is incorporated into it.
So I think there was a little bit of self-selection coming in there, that those that were not comfortable with having that part probably would not have been interested in being a part of the group.
Absolutely, yeah. So those who are not comfortable with this sort of therapy would not have been the part of that group. Yep.
If there's no one, I'd like to ask a second question.
Absolutely.
So is there a concept that, you know, this meaning of life is some different for every individual, and it may be, I don't know what the Quran says to that. There's some people are more the helpers, some people are more building something. So is there the concept to find your own, to make that your own, to find your own meaning?
Yeah, exactly. That is what, as Frankl has presented the idea of ultimate meaning. So this ultimate meaning, which is same for us, right? Whether you take it as worshiping God or whether you take it as helping humanity. But then in order to be able to achieve that ultimate goal, the path that all of us take are very different. So perhaps you and I are educationist, someone else is an engineer, someone else is still a finance guy, accountant. All of them are going towards that ultimate meaning using their own individualized path, right? So our paths to that ultimate meaning may be varying, may be different, but all of us are directed towards the same direction. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I have one more question too. Did you differentiate prayer in your study as a salah and a dua?
Sorry, once again?
Did you differentiate prayer in your study as a salah and a dua? Because it can
No,
make...
I did, yeah. It was not salah per se, it was dua, right? Why? Because see, salah is more of a ritualistic form, and dua is more of a individualized relationship with God. So I was more focused on your individualized relationship with God and not the ritual per se, because I think that would have made more sense and it would have integrated well with the study. So yeah, it was dua. So if you see the ayat, inshallah, I share the presentation. If you see the verses that I've selected, they essentially talk about dua and not about salah. No, I'm not taking away from the fact that salah in and of itself is a connection with God, that in its own place. But what I did was using the dua, right?
Okay.
We have 5 more minutes.
Just probably I'll say thank you to Dr. Wimberly once more. I think I've said it earlier, but I'll say thank you very much, Dr. Wimberly, for your trust and for allowing me to do all this crazy stuff. It would not have been possible without your support.
I have to go through to digest it.
She is very much the overachiever. I had to
Yeah.
read what she
Seems-
said.
seems
She did
so.
the hard work. Yes. I do hope that you will consider presenting an article from this for the forum, and I'm sure some other places, but we would love to have it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's coming. Dr. Wimberly, I just need a bit of spanking from you, I believe.
Bella also has small children that she's, juggling and homeschooling and all the other things that moms do.
Yeah, and Dr. Wimberly has been kind enough to do my personal therapy during my sessions. So I love you for that, Dr. Wimberly. She reminds me to take care of myself and all of that. It has been a wonderful journey with Dr. Wimberly. Absolutely wonderful.
She was my tutor as well.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
Did you have different experience?
Yes.
I had an amazing journey with Dr. Wimberly. And it was like,
Excellent.
yeah.
See what happens. You have to end up doing all the work that Memda does eventually. So we'll let your kids get a little bit older and then we'll bring you into the rest of it.
All right, then I'll say
Please
thank
do
you,
not forget
everyone.
to take the survey
Yes.
before you leave.
Bella,
All
if
right.
you'd like to share that, since you went through some of the slides quickly, they can be posted so that participants have access to some of those slides that you went through.
Absolutely, Dr. Wimberly.
It's each presenter's choice, but some may want to
Great.
look at the stats a little more. Look at some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share the slides with them. Mm.
Okay. Thank you very much, then, for all of you presenting and attending. See you soon.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for your
okay.
feedback, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm terminating the call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.